And we're live. Hey, welcome everybody to Warrior to Love. Today we're going to talk about being seen.
Good morning. I guess we're bright and early this morning. I'm still half asleep, so that was a lot. So first, it took a long time to do this segment. I've been trying to do this for a couple weeks, and we do it every other week, so it feels like months for me. It took a long. Why did it take a long time to do this segment? First, I think because being seen is miscommunicated for a lot of people, so we want to make sure that we address that. So. First kind of topic, we're going to jump right in and say, what does it mean to be seen, and defining what it means to be seen and why it matters, right? So, what does it mean to be seen, right?
Yes.
Right.
Well, for me, I never really understood what it was to be seen or see your partner.
Right. So when I brought up the topic, I said, I really want to do one of our topics on being seen, right? And we kind of had our topic set up, and I kind of tried to go out of order because I was like, I feel like this is so important. I feel like we need to talk about being seen. And he was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, do you understand what being seen means? And he said something,
pretty much.
He said something, and I was like, no, that's not what being seen is. And when I explained what being seen was, he went, oh, you do see me. And I was like, yeah.
Well, explain to me what you think it is.
So being seen is in a relationship where you are able to, it's basically knowing your partner, right? It's knowing your partner. It's knowing their strengths, knowing their weaknesses, knowing when they need support from you. It's knowing the things that they need from you, and it is adapting and doing those things for your partner. But seeing your partner is one half, right? Your partner has to recognize and know and understand that they're being seen. I think that, in my opinion, or in my experience, when relationships fail, it's because they are no longer being seen, right? So, and I can say, from previous relationships and that kind of thing, like, you can see somebody for a long time and then stop seeing them for whatever reason. And when you stop seeing somebody, that is when things fall apart, right? So, we had the discussion, and he was like, oh yeah, let's definitely do that, right? Then he kind of wrote up his mock thing, so we knew kind of a guide of where we were going, and I read through it, and I went, this isn't being seen. We're not being seen again. So we had to stop and regroup and go back and be like, okay, well, let's talk about being seen again, right? So here's what I want to make sure that we kind of establish about our Go Live today. It's that being seen is an action. It's a work in progress. And it is not something that you just do and you're done and it's going to make your relationship perfect and be over. It is something that you are always doing. It is something you make a conscious effort to do. And it is something that you're going to probably have a lot of conversations about, because if you have an argument, you are going to have to talk about whether or not you felt seen. And sometimes you may not understand that someone saw you and how they reacted. So we'll go into all of that, and that's something that we'll all talk about. But so being seen is, first, let me just preface with, this man is incredibly good at making people feel seen.
I try.
I don't think I think that, he tries on certain things, but I don't think that he has any concept of what it is that he does that makes people feel seen. Right?
Yes.
Now, he has strengths and things that make people feel seen, but then he has other things where I need to feel seen in places, and he doesn't know or understand how I need to be seen. And that's my job to communicate that.
True.
Right?
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
Right. Same thing for him, right? We are not creatures that can read minds. So we have to speak up and say those things, right? So it's so important that we're doing that, because and being seen matters, because that's what validates us in a relationship. That's what makes us feel loved, and that's what makes us feel cared for. And on the flip side, it is so important for communication, because if you don't feel seen and you don't say something, then that is when people decide to leave. That's when people stray. That's when people do all those other things, right? However, being seen by someone else isn't always in the way you want to be seen. And their action isn't necessarily what you think their action should be. And that's not, you don't get to control that, right? Just like you don't have any control over someone's emotions. They get to have their emotions, and those are their emotions. They're entitled to their emotions. They're also entitled to the way that they see you. So sometimes we have to adapt to that, right? We can communicate and say how we would like to be seen and what would help us to feel more seen. And then it's our partner's responsibility to help us. And I don't think I know any partner who would not want to help us feel seen, right? Especially us, for our warriors, we want to make sure that they feel seen.
One of the things that I've noticed with me, it's dependent on what I'm doing, it's how I see the person or see the situation. I never really understood, or I'm learning what it is, and through what you're saying of my thoughts, my action, my beliefs. And I believe that I can do better in recognizing and in validating.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of times being seen happens a lot through like the love languages, right?
Yes.
You know,
Find your love language.
right? You know, so and this is the thing about that, you know, not everybody has just one. I think we all kind of play in all of them, and I don't want to make it about that because I'm not gonna. That's not my area of expertise, but you know, Philip is really good about, like, you know, he shows up at work to bring me flowers very often. You know, he'll bring candy for the office. You know, that is something that he does because he wants me to know how much he cares for me. Philip is always telling me that he feels like I'm beautiful. He is always telling me things like that. However, just an example of feeling seen. One thing that Philip will do is tell me how attractive he finds me constantly. Not just when he tells me I'm beautiful, but he will constantly tell me how attractive I am. Okay. A lot of people will feel seen by that, right? What that does for me sometimes is it makes me feel like that's all he wants, right? So I had to go back and say, I appreciate that you find me attractive, but sometimes I need to know that you see who I am, not just a body, right?
Sure.
I need you to see that I'm a person in here. And it's not that when I walk in the door, you just want to take me upstairs, or you just want, like, every 5 minutes, it's just, hey, I just want to be with you, right? That is not, for him, he was showing me that he just desired me and he wanted to be with me all the time. He was trying to show me that he saw me, but for me, I wanted to be seen for who I am and the things that I do. I want to be seen for my compassion. I want to be seen for my empathy. I want to be seen for my work ethic. I want to be seen for, the things that I do for the community. I want to be seen for the want.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
we're back.
There's a lot that I want to, and I had to go back and communicate that. And as soon as I communicated that, he understood it. And he was like, oh, I understand. I don't want to take the other away, because the other still does make me feel seen. We just had to make sure that I communicated that to him, right? So what are the different ways that people feel seen?
Well, one is through recognition.
Mm-hmm.
A simple thank you.
Right. Thank you for doing the dishes.
Yes. And something that simple to where if they do something that's not their norm.
Right.
And because I think what it was, and then with my kids, they were like, you don't ever say anything about me doing it. Well, doing it once is not not what we need. We need to do it consistently. You need to eat 3
Right.
times a day.
But if you don't say thank you the first time, they're not going to want to do it again, right?
Sure.
You got to acknowledge the fact that they did it. You have to acknowledge that you see them, that you see that they're trying, that you see the effort they're putting in, right? So that's part of being seen, right? You're seeing what they're doing. You're seeing their effort. You're seeing they're trying.
Yeah. Another way is through understanding. Knowing and adapting, understanding where they're coming from, why they're doing it, and if it is in their best interest or my best interest or whoever. But the only thing is understanding why they're doing it, because they want something out of it.
So like, Philip has a lot of issues with feeling like he's blocked in the car, like if he feels trapped in a car. And this causes a lot of issues for me, but I know that if he feels trapped, he's going to react a certain way. And I have to know that, and I have to adapt to that by realizing that I need to be more quiet, and I need to be patient, and I need to wait and see how he is feeling and what is happening kind of with him in that situation, and ask him quietly what I can do to help, or ask him if he's feeling trapped based on his reactions, so that maybe we can get out of the situation, right? So it's a lot of times with your warrior, it is knowing some of those things that are kind of happening and helping with that. And the other one is kind of through acceptance, right?
Yeah, triggers.
Yeah.
Knowing what those triggers are and not pushing them. And understanding why they have these triggers and how they can manage it. Because even with that, what you're talking about with the driving being boxed in, I got used to going from point A to point B as fast as possible. And I didn't like people in my way, especially when the car in front of me is nobody in front of them, but they're pacing the car next to me. That's a trigger, because I see them as hindering my progress, and I just want to get around them and keep going.
There's a lot of ways that there's a lot of ways that you can talk about being seen. Like, and I've kind of been holding on to a lot of things because this segment, it has a lot of ways to be seen. So, for a personal thing for me, like, I have a really hard time seeing to drive at night. So it's hard to see on here, but like I have blue eyes and I have extremely large pupils, right? So, it is very, very hard for me to see to drive at night. I have a lot of high order aberrations. I have things like that. So very hard for me to drive at night. And what happens is sometimes I end up having to go, to trainings for my dog early in the morning, or and I have to leave very early in the morning, or if I'm going to go to like a seminar or something at night, or a weekend seminar, I'm going. Sometimes I have to go after work, so I have to travel, a couple hours out of the way, and it puts me on back roads in the middle of the night. Philip and I had set up an agreement that he would go with me to a seminar that was, a couple hours away, because I knew we would have to go down back roads. It would be late at night, that kind of thing. And it was on the calendar. It had been blocked out for a long time. Excuse me, Cheska. Thank you. Couple days before we were supposed to go, Philip decided that he wanted to do something else instead of going on the agreed upon trip with me. And that put me in kind of a panic, because not only do I have trouble seeing at night, but I also will fall asleep. Like, it's just kind of like some people fall asleep reading. It's really hard for me to drive long distances like that because I will fall asleep. So I had committed, I had paid for the seminar. It was expensive. I was planning on being there. I was still in the process of training my dog, which we still train constantly. So, it was just what it was. There was an important person that I really wanted to see. I had an opportunity to work something that I had not been able to work. So, this was an important seminar for me. I tried to communicate that why it was important to me and why I really needed him to help me go and get there. In Philip's mind, Philip felt like I was being a princess, and I just wanted him to drive me because I just wanted him to drive me, and I just didn't want to drive.
Well, it goes back to understanding.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't understand why she couldn't, and I thought she was playing me. And I didn't believe it and everything until, because you have anxiety.
Yeah. But I have anxiety for a valid reason over that. And so I kept I wanted him to see that I truly had an issue. I wanted him to see who I was and that I would not manipulate him. I wanted him to see those things about me and acknowledge that I needed my partner. That was a really tough time. It was a really tough time. And I think it was probably one of the hardest times in our marriage because of the severe miscommunication that happened following that. But at some point there was kind of a light bulb that happened, and he kind of saw, hold on, she's never manipulated me. She's never lied to me about any of those things. And we had to have kind of a heart to heart where he saw where I was coming from. He saw who I was. He realized that this is not the person that I'm trying to make her out to be. This isn't right. And, I need to make sure that if I commit to this with her, that I'm going to do this with her. And I'm going to make sure that she feels seen and loved and cared for and protected by me. And that I am, not just recognizing it, I'm understanding it, and I am accepting it, and I am taking care of her for the situation.
Yeah.
Right.
And, I struggle with being seen since retirement. Mm-hmm. Because you sit there and you do all these great and wonderful things, high speed, low drag, getting things done. In the civilian world, when I just feel invisible. Mm-hmm. Because I have all these capabilities, but nobody knows it. Mm-hmm. And I don't believe that people take me serious because I'm not involved in the middle of everything.
Right.
And that's where I felt seen.
Right.
In that environment, and then coming home and not even being able to get a simple job.
Right.
And that screws with your dignity.
Mm-hmm.
And the ability to take care of your family. And knowing, for me, in my mind, I saw it as no one cared. Everybody was doing their own thing and everything. There was no camaraderie or anything that I felt in the past. Mm-hmm. And trying to understand it. Mm-hmm. And know that it's just, I have to change up my tactics.
Right. And then as a spouse, like, you have to also understand that, and you have to see that about your person. You have to see that that's something they're struggling with if your person is retired. And, you have to recognize that they're going through those things and the difficulty that they're having with that, and understand that, recognize it. Sometimes they're struggling with those things. And it's not just about being seen in your marriage, it's being seen anywhere. Being seen is so important because it's not just in your relationship. It's kind of everywhere that you are. Right. So how can we show up for each other for that? Right.
Exactly. Seeing someone is an action. Mm-hmm. And it takes time, consideration, understanding, and everything that goes into it, because I want to know what makes you tick.
Right. Well, it's a choice too.
Yeah.
It's a choice. You have to choose to see someone every day.
Well, or in my past, my previous relationship, I stopped seeing her. Mm-hmm. I stopped because it wasn't.
Hey, Leslie.
Hey, Leslie. But I didn't see that uh, in her. I saw her in the beginning, but because every time I needed, she turned around and it was detrimental to me. So I started looking at, well, if I'm getting all the heat from it and have to take all the responsibility and everything to it, I might as well make a decision that benefits me. And if it benefits the other part, woohoo. If it doesn't, I didn't care.
Right. But in that moment, so if those things, if there should have been a conversation right at that point about being seen, right?
Yes.
Because as soon as there's a problem with being seen, there has to be a conversation.
Yes.
Right. If we don't feel seen, we have to make sure that we speak up. It's really important to communicate clearly because, as we said, nobody can read your mind. You have to start with saying, I didn't feel seen, because that's a truly powerful first step. Right.
Yes.
So ways to help a warrior feel seen obviously is going to take a lot of patience. It's going to take a lot of patience because it's really hard for
not choosing as a choice.
Right. Not choosing as a choice. Exactly. It's really hard, I think, for a lot of our warriors to come home, whether they're active, whether they're veterans, it really doesn't matter. It's hard for them to come in and say, I don't feel seen. Number one, not just because it's hard for them to say, I don't feel seen. It's also hard because they don't necessarily recognize that that's what they're feeling, right? That they're not feeling seen. And it's sometimes because it's not necessarily that they're struggling that you don't see them. It's struggling that they're not being seen wherever they are. Right.
Yes.
I think that's one of the things society is trying to do now with our younger generation, with the whole PC thing at work and stuff like that. And the whole everything about all the employees are great. They're trying to make people feel seen. Not necessarily in the best way, but that's what they're trying to do. Right. So it's just something to show how important it is to make people feel seen, right? They're recognizing that, they're trying to do that even in a workplace, right? So in your relationship with your warriors and with spouses, it's so important to be seen, especially if you have a spouse at home with a baby, and you're working all day long. It is so hard for both of you sometimes to feel seen because both sides of that relationship are working so hard, and acknowledging what each other needs and seeing each other for what you're doing and how hard you're working is sometimes very, very difficult.
Yeah. And I believe that. And Dr. Leslie Flowers, her thing is being seen, is listening to and acknowledged.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a valid point that she makes, and I agree with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's all part of it is acknowledgement.
Mm-hmm.
Acknowledgement, because with me it was more
yeah, so we kind of were talking about that, Leslie. We kind of went into a lot of that because it's a lot of different there's a lot of kind of different connotations with that. So being seen is recognizing your partner in a lot of ways, right? So it is the acknowledgement, it's the appreciation of your partner, it's taking action, it's communication, it's effort, it's knowing who your partner is, it's all of those things. So seeing your partner can be a lot of different things, right? So like I was explaining how good Philip is about those things. It could be something and I kind of referenced a little bit of like the love languages, but I didn't want to really talk about those because like I'm not a person. It's a whole different thing, but people can acknowledge and see people kind of through those things, right? Because that's how people feel seen. People can, when you're seen, that's how you feel acknowledged and loved, right? That's how you feel like you're appreciated, and it's how you feel like you're part of the relationship, right? No, I don't mind repeating because I want to make sure that, I might not have said something that I'm saying now. So, and I pointed out some of the things that, allows, we can kind of allow each other to give each other kind of a safe space to communicate to and things like that. But just as an example, when you don't feel seen, like, or if you feel like something is like, there can be a whole, let me try to think of another scenario that I was, it's easier for me to say a scenario when I didn't feel seen because, obviously it's personal. Okay. Recently, I was at home, we were sitting on the couch, and Philip got a phone call from one of his daughters, and his daughter was talking to him about our Jeep, and a whole decision was made around a purchase of our Jeep. And I had no idea that our Jeep was being sold. I had no idea anything about this Jeep. Philip had made a whole decision, there was a whole plan in place. He had conversed about that, sold the Jeep, done everything. And I was never once consulted. So we had purchased a refrigerator and we had sold a Jeep, both things without ever discussing it with me. In that moment, I did not feel like I was part of our relationship. I didn't feel like I was seen in our relationship, and I did not feel like I was part of the relationship. So we had to have that whole discussion about, we have to be part of each other's relationship because that's how I feel seen in our relationship. We have to have those communications. I have to be consulted. He may make the final decisions in our relationship. He gets the ultimate, because he's doing our finances and things like that. He makes the final decisions, but I have to have a voice and I have to be recognized. So that is how I'm seen in our relationship. So we had to sit back and have that communication. And Philip can answer how we met because that's his favorite thing.
Well, Leslie asked me, how did you two meet? Well, funny story, or a great story. I came across from Seattle to Jacksonville, Florida to set up residency for my daughter. And she turned around and went to Boise State. But I was playing around on Match and saw her picture. I was like, wow, she's very pretty. And I passed her up. And then I went back and realized I had nothing to lose and might as well try to contact her. And I met her out at Michael's Beach here in Jacksonville, Florida.
I let him meet me in my bikini because I didn't think he'd go anywhere. He had an out-of-state number, and I thought he was playing me. And all serial killers are from Seattle,
Oh, yeah. But so when I walked out on the beach and I saw her, God smacked me in the back of the head, told me to pay attention because this woman would change my world. And that's the interpretation I got in that moment. And I realized that I was my problem. And I needed to take a different perspective, a different view, softer myself. And because I was still fighting the fight and trying to produce stuff and get out. And I guess I just wanted to be involved.
You still want to be involved. But really quick to back up, when we were talking about, let's see. Yeah, boundaries. Yeah. So we were talking about like what's important and how to make it happen. We talked about taking action, acknowledgement, appreciation, communication, effort. And
communication is a big one.
Well, I mean, I think we've kind of talked about that in each segment, but ways to help a warrior feel seen. Obviously, we've talked about patient, but also listening without fixing. Warriors are trained to solve problems, but sometimes they really just need to be heard. I think both of us really just want to be heard. So absolutely, we just want to be listened to, and we want to, be understood.
I think that's the biggest thing is being understood and understanding the underlying reasons of why do you do what you do? Well, you got to find out. And with knowing a personal connection or a simple thing is you got to understand and know your partner.
Right. And, a lot of warriors do not, don't speak of their internal struggles and things like that. They don't voice them. So a lot of times, you know, as spouses, we have to kind of pay attention to those and watch the subtle signs and stuff like that. So, you know, we have to be aware of that and make sure that we're paying attention so that we can help them communicate or just listen. And sometimes being that partner means just waiting and giving them a safe space for that. You know, because when they feel safe, they will talk about it. There's a lot they're never really going to talk about unless it's with a comrade, you know?
Well, someone that you don't have to explain what it's like, and because they were there, they did it, they understand it, versus coming back here, trying to explain it to a civilian that's never done it is difficult because there's so much involved in your thoughts, your beliefs, your actions that go into why you're doing what you're doing.
Right. And so seeing that in him, like I'm not going to expect him to talk to me about that, but I can also recognize and see some of those behaviors or some of the times that he's triggered by something, or, you know, the people that stand on top of the overpasses with the John 3:16 signs, things like that. Triggers for people who have had things thrown down on top of them, warriors. So, you know, sometimes you have to recognize that in people. So, you know, there's a lot with that. There's a lot of different things, and you have to know that about your person. You have to know that about people. And just being there for them is also seeing them. Like you have to see what things like that trigger people, or what things like that are uncomfortable for them, and validate their experiences. You know, just you can't even imagine what that is like for them. So don't try. Don't try.
Yeah.
Don't say it's going to be fine. Just go underneath there. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't help them in any way. It doesn't it doesn't make them feel better. It's just like when, you know, if I'm having an anxiety attack, him saying to me, it's fine, you know, just get over it.
Suck it up there.
That doesn't work. No. So, you know, you can encourage people, but you can't force them. You have to allow them to share on their own terms without pressure. Right. So, you know, one of the things that I think we have to also be willing to do is accept support. And feeling seen starts with understanding that people also may have seen you in a different way than you thought you were being seen. Right. So let's kind of talk about that for a minute, because how we are seen can be different. Right. So for example, we might in some way think, I'm going to walk in the door today. And this is just an example, right? I'm going to walk in the door today. And when I walk in, he's going to meet me and he's going to give me this big hug and he's going to lift me off my feet, swing me around and kiss me and tell me, I've been waiting for you all day, right? That's how you want to be seen, because that's been in your head all day. You felt like you needed that. And that's what you thought you wanted to be seen today. You get home and he's on the couch and he says, oh man, it looks like you've had a really rough day. What if I get up and get you a glass of wine? And you're like, gosh, he didn't even see me. He didn't get up and pick me up and twirl me around and give me a hug. He didn't recognize that. He didn't see this. He didn't see me. Right? Yeah. So you're going to comment to him. You're going to tell him, I just really wanted you to pick me up, twirl me around, give me a hug, love me. And I felt like you didn't see me because you didn't do that. His conversation is going to be, oh, you know, I didn't know that that's what you needed, but, you know, I really saw that you had a bad day, and I thought that maybe a glass of wine might really have helped you. And so when I saw that you were having a bad day, I just really thought that I should get you a glass of wine, and that's why I brought that up, right? He did see me. He did see I was having a bad day. He did see I needed a glass of wine, and that was probably what I needed. I probably needed a hug too. So at that moment, he's going to say,
well, hugs turn into other things.
He's going to say, okay, so next time she comes in the door and she has that look on her face, I'm going to come give her a hug first. I'm going to tell her I see she's having a bad day. Do you want a glass of wine? That's going to meet both of my needs, right?
Yeah.
So.
And I think part of that is I'm bored at home and you're out doing your thing and working all day, and it absorbs a lot of your energy.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, I tell you one thing, I never really respected someone that stays home with the kids and everything until I had to do it. It's tough. It makes you want to go to work.
Yeah. Leslie, we're trying to get a lot of these out on LinkedIn. We're just kind of getting started. So we are working on these topics and trying to get them out on LinkedIn because we absolutely agree with you. And this is the purpose of our show, because we want to, what our goal is here is to get some of these lives out so that we can get our content for our podcast. So we have to get a lot of these lives under our belt so that we can get our content for our podcast. So we're going to do both. We're going to get a lot of these conversations out. And thank you for the topic idea. We appreciate those. Any topic ideas, we're always happy for them. So I really like that. But yes, we're going to try and get a lot of these out and try and get some of these so we can get some clips for our podcast. And we are going to do a podcast with all of these topics too. So that is absolutely our plan. Because I feel like there might be some conversations about some of these topics, but not really specific to our couples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like our feelings, or like geared more towards spouses and warriors and things like that, and the communication that really needs to go around, right? And you're right.
Somebody would say the warriors are stubborn. Imagine
I don't know
that.
who would say that. Telling him in advance, Leslie, I agree with you. But a lot of people don't do that. One of our other segments, we talked about communication and how a lot of people sometimes have a problem with communicating that. And some ideas that we kind of put out there on how to communicate. And I kind of briefly referenced, I have a friend who struggles with communicating, and her and her husband use like a stuffy system. Because she has a hard time communicating her feelings or her emotions. And so what they did was they used kind of stuffies to put out like how she was feeling and things like that. So there's kind of a lot of different things that kind of go on with that. But when you're at work and something goes bad, you can't, if you have a hard time communicating your feelings, it's hard to, or your emotions, it's hard to do that kind of thing, right? So, but if what we're talking about here is communication and expectations and that kind of thing, there's a lot about that, and setting expectations. And one of the things that I said in the beginning is that because this is an action and this is something that is ongoing, it is something that is constant, because as I said, it is a choice and it is something that you're doing every day. It is something that you never can stop doing. If you stop doing it, that is when your relationship starts having a lot of problems. And that's why when you're choosing to do it and when you are making this action, it is something that you constantly have to make sure that you're doing it, right?
Yes.
And so
it's a conscious effort.
Right. Absolutely.
If you don't pay attention, next thing you know it, you're going, why are they always mad at me? Or something like that. Versus,
why are they distant?
Why are they distant?
Mm-hmm.
Wait a minute. She used to tell me, I sit down after her day and she gets to unload the stories of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And initially I didn't think much of it. Now I look at it as, well, I get to find out what's going on, and her frustrations about it. And I realized I had the same thing when I was in the military and working for different organizations and contracts and everything. In a way, it gives me purpose and understanding, and it allows me to recognize her battles that she goes through. I didn't do them, but I can understand and empathize with her that it's the way it's supposed to be if we communicate and we let each other know how we're feeling in the moment. I think that plays a big part in that, in getting you to understand where I'm at and I understand where you're at. And it allows me to make better choices, make more sound choices that are in our benefit rather than taking it personal. And I think that's a big problem that a lot of veterans and first responders, we take things personal because we deal with trauma on a daily basis. And coming now, it sucks when you don't have that trauma.
I don't think it's ex-military only. I think he's speaking from his perspective. I think he's.
I don't think
speaking
it's
from
just warriors, or it's warriors in the sense that you don't have to go to combat to be a warrior. You're fighting every day for your existence is more of what I'm looking at. And it can translate over to anybody that is handling a high stress situation.
I kind of want to be clear about something, because spouses in that situation, you have to understand, I feel like a spouse is kind of a warrior too in that aspect, because sometimes you're living in a battlefield. Okay. Like, you have to understand that sometimes spouses are dealing with a lot, and a lot of people will recognize that and a lot of people don't. But when you are a spouse, you're dealing with a lot of PTSD. You're dealing with a lot of triggers. You're dealing with a lot of those things, and that's sometimes not really recognized. People are recognizing spouses for being there when their husbands go to war, go out. Right? I wasn't there for a lot of that, and so they will say to a spouse, thank you for your service too, because spouses do a service when they stay home and take care of the children, or stay home and hold down the fort. They stay home and they do a lot. Like, Philip was in the military with this fantastic man whose wife, Miriam, was just incredible with helping his unit. I'll cry thinking about her. She's just fantastic. But she was absolutely a warrior. She is 100% a warrior. The things that she did at home for them, and went to bat for them and did things for them, like, she's fantastic. But also when they come home and they're struggling with a lot of these things, they're struggling with not being seen in the community. They're struggling with all this stuff. Nobody wants to. They'll say, you're overqualified because they have more experience than the person that's interviewing them, or people are afraid to hire them because they're afraid of their PTSD or things like that. And then they feel like they're not seen, and that creates a lot of turmoil inside.
You feel discarded.
Right. And so when you are struggling with that at home, like, you have to keep in mind that spouses are going through a lot with that too. And so it's a lot that, as a partnership, you're working through a lot together, and you are each other's person.
And that's the biggest thing is, and with me realizing she is my person. Mm-hmm. She's one that I want to share everything with. My life, my love, my attention, my everything, my being with her. And I realized that maybe I need to pay attention. Mm-hmm. Pay attention what she's saying, how she's feeling, because I want her to feel as loved as much as I am, or I'm learning to.
Learning to feel that way?
Learning to feel loved.
What? What do you mean?
Well, and that was the whole point of it, is really connecting, just stopping, and putting my personal feelings, thoughts, and everything aside, and see the situation for what it really is. Mm-hmm. And you're a partner, not an adversary. Mm-hmm. And if I can't communicate with you, how can I communicate with anybody else? Mm-hmm. You're there for the most intimate moments mm-hmm. of my life, and give me a reason to come back home. Mm-hmm. And I like that one thing that people say, thank you for your service. And you look back and go, you were worth it. Mm-hmm. She was worth my everything. It took me 42 years to find her. And it was the timing, being in the right place at the right time, doing the right things, and hope. Mm-hmm. Because it could have went many different ways. Mm-hmm. But the way we talked, we communicate, and we're kind to each other. But yet, if we blow up, one of us needs to step back and go, oh, okay, ooh, I need to shut up right now. I need to let you get what you're saying out, and how that impacts me,
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that the more I fight it, the worse it gets.
Mm-hmm.
If sometimes just stop and pay attention to the moment in itself and realize that in reality, it's probably not the way you think it is. And it helps with self-medication.
What?
I said that helps with communicating and everything, prevents me from self-medicating.
Oh,
with
okay.
Alcohol.
I thought he was saying it helps to self-medicate. I was like, wait. So like this week, we wanted to kind of challenge people, the warriors to, try and show someone that you see them this week. And then, for your partners, like ask your spouse, do you know and understand the ways that I see you? And kind of have that conversation. See if you can do that, and how people and how you see each other, and have that discussion. Ask each other, because we all have different ways of expressing and receiving love, and at the core of all of that, we all just really want to be seen, heard, and valued.
Yes.
And that's really what we want when we're being seen. So,
and some exercises to try this week. While you're thinking about it, is mirror check-in. Look your partner in the eyes and ask, are there any times you don't feel seen? With no distractions, no interruptions, just look at them and go, what point are you being seen?
Mm-hmm. Have there been any times that you don't feel seen? Or how do you feel seen? How do I make you feel seen? Anything like that. Like, have that conversation, just get it out there.
Yeah.
Or, the I see you exercise, like each partner shares one thing that they see in the other person, not just the actions, but who they are. Right. So not just you bring me flowers, and I know you see me because you bring me flowers, but you see me because you will rearrange your schedule to make sure that if I have to get up at 4 a.m. that you will take me to training because you know and understand that I can't see to drive at night.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And also journaling and self-recognition. Mm-hmm. Warriors often feel unseen, but they don't have themselves to see clearly. Writing down personal victories helps shift this mindset into one of more of love and being seen for yourself, and showing up and getting out and doing what you want out of life, rather than just meddling through. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was getting out in the community, showing up, writing about it on LinkedIn and Facebook, and letting others know how I'm feeling. I never did that until just last couple of years, because I didn't think anybody cared or wanted to hear any of these stories. But to the most part, that has helped me out, getting your thoughts, your beliefs out of your head. Because what I found out is once I write it down, I don't worry about it as much. I don't think about it, or it's not a focus or something of mine to distract me away from other things that I can be doing as well. But it took a long time to realize that feeling isn't about other people. It starts with me being willing to recognize and trust my partner. Yeah.
And honestly, for those who love a warrior, you really need to recognize that when you start having these conversations with your warrior, that he's not always going to recognize that what you're doing is being seen, right? It takes a lot of communication in no moments for both of you on both sides of that, because being seen isn't always talked about. We all want it, right? We all want it. We all want those things, but we're not always talking about it. So the more we start talking about it, and we start talking about how we're seeing each other and our needs and our expectations and how we're different from each other, and what we have done to try and do things for each other, and the little things, because we see each other differently. I mean, we show those, and we see each other differently. So there's going to be a lot of moments in there for both sides. So
Most definitely.
Yeah. So
Being seen is more than recognition. It's about connection. Adding connection, what makes Wes truly feel alive. And those connections, and I realized that's what I enjoyed about the military. And it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, or a warrior is someone that gets out and has fought their whole life to get to where they're at. And you realize now that I've done all the fighting. Now what? Now it's about,
I don't want to call the credit card companies and fight, like an old man. It's not my balance.
No, but to the most part, I think that's what it is. It's feeling alive and valued, and that you're contributing to the betterment of the relationship. Because we all make mistakes. We're going to make mistakes, but being able to articulate that to your partner can help reduce a lot of the strain, or the misunderstandings and the anger. Because like we were saying earlier about my car, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think she really cared or what it really mattered. It was a decision I made because I have to make most of the decisions. But I realized,
to be clear, he makes all the decisions, but you still have to communicate. Being seen is being communicated to in the relationship. Like, if you hold in your relationship the power to make the final decision, right?
Yeah.
Like, that was the agreement that we made. He leads our household. He has the final decision making, unless there is something, I have that veto power, but for the most part, he has the ability to make that final decision. We're going to talk about it. We're going to go over everything, but he is the tiebreaker. He makes that final decision. That does not mean that there's not a discussion and that we're not going to talk about it, because I have valid opinions. I bring, valid decisions. And so there's a lot of things sometimes that he's not seeing or thinking about, or directions that, could be going, or options that are not discussed, and that kind of thing. And so as a partnership, you have to do all of those. And that again is about, being seen and things like that. And so that is why it's a choice, and that is why it is an action, and that is why it is, you have to do it every day. And it might change, right? Like, because it is an action and it is adaptive, things like that can change. So this might be another topic again. It might come up again. And Leslie, you're right. You choose the way it is and the way it isn't every day. Absolutely.
So
I did that, by the way.
What?
I skipped ahead.
Oh, okay.
Philip gives me this great draft to follow, and I just blow it out of the water and go wherever I want. It's just my superpower when this thing goes live. I don't know. This is not me in human life. I don't act this way. I don't know. It just
she gets on camera and
the live button comes on, and I'm like, oh hey, and then I just do whatever I want. It just happens that way. I don't know.
But the whole part to it for me was seeing her as an asset rather than a liability, and not understanding that she's here to make my life better and more well-rounded, because I'm definitely more people friendly than I used to be, and withholding a lot.
Over here like a liability. What?
Well, no, in my
you
brain.
Call me what?
Well, to me, it's realizing that we don't have the same skill sets, but
I still am a ninja warrior, just for the record.
A what?
Ninja warrior.
A ninja warrior.
That's right.
Okay.
You give me a butcher knife, no, I'm just kidding. Aztec warfare.
Yeah, but you don't cook.
No, but I can throw a knife.
Yeah, you can. Well, don't throw knives. Don't pick up a knife. It's about love and understanding.
We will Mr. and Mrs. Smith this shit, though. Somebody comes in our house, okay?
Oh, yeah, we'll do that. we'll just start throwing pots, pans, everything.
Pew,
But
pew.
all right. So to wrap this up, I greatly appreciate Leslie Flowers coming in. Dr. Leslie Flowers is a great person to have a conversation with. She's all around wonderful. I've known her for a couple of years now since I started doing this. But definitely one thing to try, show someone.
I just told you I did that.
Oh, okay. You see them this week. She
she
just jumped ahead. And
I totally messed him up. Look, I threw him off.
do you know why and understand the way I see you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was hard for me because I don't know. I just felt throughout my life I was being I needed a partner. It's someone that I can respect and understand and realize that you're not me.
It's about seeing somebody, and it's seeing what the other person see. Sometimes it's about seeing what they see in you, and but all of being seen relies on communication too. You can't, we have talked all the time about communication. I feel like we kind of beat that into people. We talk about the communication aspect over and over and over. You cannot feel and be heard and seen and all of those things without communication, because you're going to have misunderstandings and you have to communicate those. So
cultural differences too,
right,
because I grew up in the North and the West Coast. Southern women are different. They're a lot more headstrong. But she's teaching me, and I'm learning, and to understand and to accept the reality around me and not what I think it should be. It's about coming together and standing up and going, I love this person. Wow, in every fiber of my being, I love this person. And to be able to look them in the eye and go, I don't ever want to imagine life without you. And that's one of the things I get with officiating weddings. I get to feel that every time.
Mm-hmm. So I hope that this has helped. I hope it helps you with seeing your warrior and communicating that and showing them that you love them and that you see them, and being able to communicate when you don't feel seen, or communicating how you would like to be seen, or just having those conversations and just opening it up. And please stop shaking. And having that ability to open up that line of communication and everything. I think that if anything, I hope it helps, and I hope that you have those conversations throughout the week, and give us some feedback. Let us know what you think. Leslie's given us some good ideas here for some topics, and so hopefully we can get those out and start talking about that. So we hope to see you again, and we hope that you guys catch us on our next live.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, I greatly appreciate everybody coming and listening, and hopefully we were able to address some issues or understandings that make you better with your warrior and realize that you're the love that brings us all together. And it's the glue that gets me to understand and with clarity. But other than that, hey, thank you again for coming. I hope you guys have a great week. Get out there and love and being part of your local community and your family and everything, and engage.
Go see somebody.
All right, bye.